Hey everybody, my name's Ed. Okay, so today we're going to do a movie review. I'm going to review the 2017 theatrical release of the Wonder Woman movie, directed by Patty Jenkins, screenplay by Alan Heinberg, from a story by Zack Snyder, Alan Heinberg, and Jason Fuchs, or Fuchs. Okay, so describing the premise, basically Princess Diana lives on the island of Themyscira. Themyscira is an all-female society based on the Amazons of Greek myth. They live there in peace and harmony, and they have this real idyllic existence, although they're always training and learning how to fight in case they're ever invaded. Anyway, one day, an American soldier crashes on their island, and he's followed by some German soldiers and things like that. And without giving too much away, the Amazons realize that they can't stay hidden any longer. They figure out they have to take Steve back to the outside world. And because it's set during the days of World War One, what do I want to say? It's set during the days of World War One. This is the war to end all wars, and Diana figures, like I said, their society is based on the old Greek myths and things like that. She thinks all this violence and warfare that's going on is the result of Ares, the god of war. So while they're going to take Steve back, Diana decides she's going to stay there and she's going to find Ares and kill him, and that will be the end of all war. Steve's not necessarily sold 100% on that, but hey, since she's willing to help him fight Germans, he lets her hang out with him. In the meantime, we get to see scenes of Diana and Steve and their relationship and how she sort of adjusts to a modern society and the outside world, and the different cultures that are present, and seeing different sides of normal humanity. Of course, all this, there is a kind of a MacGuffin involving let's say, a weapon that's being developed by the Germans that Steve really wants to stop. And like I said, there's the whole thing of, is Ares real? Is he not real? All this leads to a big, gigantic climax. So that's it in a nutshell, without giving too much of it away. I thought most of the acting was pretty good. I remember when this movie was first announced, and they leaked out the idea that Gal Gadot was going to be a star, and I think a lot of people had various criticisms of Gadot. I know I'll admit it, I was one of the people who were like, yeah, isn't she a little bit skinny? But of course, she's been through her training. They buffed her up some, and I thought she was fine. I thought she really delivered. I think she really delivered what I wanted to see out of a live-action version of that character. I think her strength of personality was there. I think there was a certain amount of innocence that was there. I think she was able to convey compassion, which I'll get to a little bit later, very well. I like the actor, I can't remember his name right now, who played Steve Trevor. I like the lady who played Etta Candy. There's a couple other characters. I don't want to spoil it. One character I recognized, I was aware of from the comics. I thought that person didn't have a big role, but I thought she was pretty well done. There's another character that I ended up looking up because I thought this must be some Silver Age or Golden Age character that I wasn't aware of, and it turns out it's actually a real person, which kind of cracked me up a little bit considering how he was used in the film. But I thought acting-wise, I thought it was pretty well. I thought the plot was done, was well structured. A lot of the premise is really based on the early issues of the George Perez run from the mid 80s, which is also the premise of that Wonder Woman direct-to-video animated thing. It's almost the same plot. It's not done exactly the same way, but it's the basic plot. And like I said, I thought it fit really well. I thought there was a good amount of suspense. I think things flowed in a mostly naturalistic way. It wasn't perfect. I thought there were some flaws to it. But as far as the plot was concerned, I thought that was good. I thought the action scenes were decent. There was one great set piece about maybe the middle of the movie that I really, really, really enjoyed. I thought was really well done. I thought there were a few other things. There were a few scenes that I thought were a little bit too, I don't know what word I want to use, Matrix-y, and that's something you see in a lot of, well, some movies these days where they're still copying these sort of slow motion twists and turns and wow, this looks really cool on screen in slow motion, but it actually would be pretty inefficient in an actual fight. But I almost want to let it go, seeing as the characters are based on mythological people and whatnot. I did have a problem with the climax. I thought it was just a bit too CGI, if that makes any sense. I mean, I'm thinking, wow, if this was drawn in a comic book by a good artist, this would be great. Or if this was done animated, this would be really cool. But seeing, like I said, these live action people mixed with these, like I said, blurry whatever CGI, it almost took me out of the movie a little bit. It's not like I know how it could have been done better or shot better. I'm sure there's some way you could have done practical effects and made it look cool, but I have no idea how that might have affected the budget or not. So let's see here. Now, one thing I thought was really interesting, I thought the movie made I thought they went really out of their way to really, really downplay a lot of the gender issues that are actually part of the character's origin story. Like almost every version of, whether it's like I said, the 80s George Perez version, Golden Age version, the pilot for the Linda Carter TV show, even I think I mentioned the DVD, the animated DVD from several years ago. A part of the origin story is the idea that the Amazons live on this island isolated from the rest of humanity, which they consider man's world. And the idea that not that the narratives never say that all men are evil, but that there's evil, there's violence, there's struggle, there's suffering, there's strife, there's all these things out there in the outside world, and there's these men out there who wanted to subjugate us once, at one time. It's the idea that this wasn't in the movie, but various comics play off the whole thing that the Queen of Paradise Island, I can never say her name. I can't say her name, so I'm not going to say it. Hepatala. That's not right. You know who I'm talking about. But was raped by Hercules and things like that, and the whole idea of female empowerment and women can do things on their own and so on and so forth, and you really didn't get a whole lot of that in this movie. And it's not that I felt that this should have been some male bashing thing or thing like that, but I think there is a way that you can have that discussion in the story, without making it without making it a male bashing thing. I mean, matter of fact, in most of the things that I just mentioned, they did do just that. They recognized the whole sort of war of the sexes type thing, and then having Wonder Woman or Diana being this person who can actually bridge that conflict or whatever. But it just seemed to me, it seemed interesting to me that this film didn't even want to sort of deal with that like at all, you know. So not saying that made the movie bad or anything, but just like I said, historically that's always been part of the origin story. This one, I kind of get the feeling the filmmakers might have thought that it was kind of a too much of a hot potato, possibly. But like I said, I just think it was interesting that they really sort of downplayed that aspect of the character or the origin story, I should say. One thing I thought they did get right that I think, you know, certain comic book writers kind of mess up is they did take pains to show that while Wonder Woman is this superhero, she's this badass warrior, she's fierce, she's determined, she's strong, she's all those things, but they did take great care to show that she's also very passionate. I think that was part of the original creator, William Marston's, you know, vision. The idea that, you know, it's not just that, you know, she's tough and she can fight, but this character will embody, you know, these you know, these fighting skills, these superpowers and things, but also these things of femininity, you know, beauty, love, compassion, and these things are positive things. These things aren't detriments; they're assets. And I think they did a good job of showing that. I think that's something, like I said, the comic book characters or some comic book writers, you know, whenever they want to make the character more interesting, they want to show her chopping somebody's head off or something like that. And while, yeah, I think that's part of the character, that's not the only part of the character. I think that's only half of the character. And I do appreciate that the movie did show that aspect of the character. I think they did really well on that part. Okay, if you're a comics fan, there are probably some things that will stick out to you. First thing is, I'm not too sure why they did it, but the movie is set in World War II. It's set in World War One. In the real world that, you know, you and I live in, the character debuted in 1941, and the original origin story was set during World War II. And then, as they've done, you know, subsequent retellings of the origin, they just pull, you know, push it up to, you know, whatever the present is. So now, why they decided to make this one in World War One, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was a thing of not wanting to be compared to the Captain America movie, possibly. You know, I don't know. Could be. I have no idea. I haven't read anything about that. And but that's okay. That's okay, because I think it lent a different feel to the movie. You know, the World War One setting. So I thought that was very interesting. Let's see here. I think also I just wanted to mention that if you know the comics, you can see where they've tried to blend some of the modern New 52 version of the character, take some of those elements and meld them with the more classic versions of the character. But I think for the most part, I think it worked. I think they did a good job of that. Again, if you're a comic books fan, you watch these Marvel movies, you can see in stuff like Captain America and an Avengers movie where they blend stuff from the 616 universe with stuff from the Ultimates universe. But like I said, it mostly worked. I can't think of anything that I thought was a big mistake or big flaw. Most of the problems I had with the movie were like little things. There was like one or two things where I'm like, yeah, not really buying it. Couple of maybe one or two bad lines, a few little fish out of water things that a couple of them worked, a couple of them didn't really work. But for the most part, I thought it was a really solid movie. Like I said, the actors are all likable. I think they did a good job. Like most of the characters, I thought were interesting. The structure of the movie worked for me. The overall plot worked for me. I thought it built to a satisfying conclusion. So yeah, I guess that's it. We're a solid movie. I'll give it I don't know. I don't really give star ratings. 3 out of 5, I guess. Okay, yeah, I think that works for me. So yeah, that's it. I gotta thank you very much for watching. You guys have a good day.